This is William K. Murtaugh, Mert Witness 1, and tonight we're going to talk about birds of a feather. And the birds of a feather would include Timothy Charles Homseth, Field McConnell, Kirk Pendergrass, the person we know as Preacher Dan, and a new entry into the ball game here, the Obsessed One. Now all these birds of a feather have one thing in common. They don't like women, or they've at least had bad experiences with women. And these individuals also have a problem with the law. Timothy Charles Homseth, being at the top of this list, is the individual that decided that he did not want to appear in court. And he has now been on the run for quite a bit of time, living fat and happy in a very expensive house, eating free food and so on and so forth, watching TV, all the good stuff. And then we have Preacher Dan. Now this guy is an absolute interesting character. He just lost, I believe it is wife number 7 after only 4 days of marriage. Apparently things didn't work out, and she decided it's time for me to make like a tree and leave. And she got the flock out of there. Now we have Kirk Pendergrass. He's had his share of problems with both women and the court system. He has gone into detail. And one bird of a feather I didn't mention was his partner down here in Florida, Mr. Hallett, who not only has had problems with the court and with his divorce, but also with child support. He doesn't seem to like paying child support. So he's kind of a piece of work. And then in the mix we got Mr. John Doe. Now this is a person I call the Obsessed One, and he's popped up recently on a woman's email. He has this thing about a certain woman down in Florida, just as Timothy Charles Homseth does. And he just can't seem to get out of the habit of bothering people who don't want anything to do with him. He sends them unsolicited letters. If they write back and tell him that you don't want them to hear from them, or from him, excuse me, he just keeps sending the letters, and you have no alternative but to either ignore him or to block him. And that also goes for a Twitter account he has. This action, by the way, is what got Tim Homseth into trouble. He decided to play armchair detective way back in 2008 and contacted an attorney in Florida who told him in no uncertain terms she wanted nothing to do with him. He kept bothering her. She relented and gave her side of the story and said, "Now that you know what I have to say, leave me alone." He wouldn't do it. And so after 10 years of this, she took out a court order to get him to stop. And of course he didn't stop and wound up getting put in jail, served time in jail on the first of 4 offenses. Number 2 is coming up, and he decided he didn't feel like going to county jail, so he boogied, flew the coop. And so now Mr. Homseth is on the run. Of course, he's living high on the hog, gaining a bit of weight in a nice big recreational room at the bottom of somebody's house, watching big TV and so on and so forth. Now, all of these people seem to think that life is not being fair, and thus they have gathered together. And before we go on, though, I can't forget Mr. Field McConnell. He's a real piece of work. Field McConnell decided that he was going to have Timothy Homseth in his little network, and because of this, he took on Tim Homseth's derision of this attorney from Florida, even though there was no evidence. Mr. McConnell decided that he wanted the woman arrested, tried, and executed, but not by regular court, of course, by whatever court system that Mr. Pendergrass was going to set up, a so-called common law court, sovereign citizen court, or what have you, which Mr. Pendergrass has never bothered to tell anybody about. So, we have all these birds of a feather having all their various legal troubles, and they are picking on one single woman in the state of Florida. Not really sure why there is such an obsession with this particular woman, but this type has to have a cause, and they have chosen this woman to be their cause. Now, we don't know what's going to be the net result. We do have Mr. McConnell getting 3 squares and a cot in a county jail right now. He's got a hearing coming up the first Tuesday in December, so that ought to be a trip. And it's likely he's going to wind up getting a free vacation to Florida. As for the other guys, it's hard to say what's going to happen to them. There are efforts being made to bring the appropriate charges against each of these individuals for various criminal offenses. And so as time goes on, we'll see what happens in the mysterious world of the sovereign citizen internet. This is William K. Murtaugh, Mert Witness 1, wishing you a belated Thanksgiving and happy holidays and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's and whatever celebrations there are in the meantime. I think there's Kwanzaa in there and a couple other things. But you all celebrate the way you want to celebrate, eat what you want to eat, drink what you want to drink, and stay tuned. Things are going to get real interesting from here on out. In the meantime, have a good one.